6:48 p.m. Or, I'm sorry, yeah, 6:48. Item 2 on the agenda, Statement of Investment Policy Review. Can we have the Administrative Services Director's report, please?
Yes, Mr. Chair. So Wyoming law requires every municipality to approve a statement of investment policy to guide how city funds are managed. The policy sets clear responsibilities and ensures that public money is handled safely and effectively. To help cities develop strong investment policies, organizations like the American Public Treasurers of the United States and Canada and the Government Finance Association, Officers Association, provide guidance and technical assistance for these policies. The recommendations offer a framework that Treasury officials can tailor to fit their community's needs. Our city's investment policy was first adopted in 1996 following these best practices. And since then, it has been revised 3 times, with the most recent update in February of 2024, last year. One of the most important parts of the policy is Section 6.0 states that the Finance Committee is responsible for periodically reviewing it to ensure that it remains effective. The policy outlines 4 main priorities for investment activities in order of importance. Number 1 is safety. Our job is to make sure that we're protecting public funds from any risk. Number 2 is liquidity, so we ensure that we have funds available when it's needed. And a return on investment is number 3, which means that we maximize our earnings while managing our risk. And then community investment, where we're supporting local economic growth where possible. Beyond these priorities, the policy also covers critical topics like management responsibilities, ethics, conflict of interest, authorized investments, collateralization, diversification, and reserve balances, all of which help ensure that the city funds are managed responsibly and in the best interest of the community. By keeping a solid investment policy in place and reviewing it regularly, the city ensures that public funds are handled responsibly and put to good use. And these guidelines help keep our finances secure while also allowing for smart growth and remaining focused on making sound financial decisions. So included in your packet tonight is a copy of the Statement of Investment Policy. I hope you've had a chance to review it. I would stand for any questions that you may have. And otherwise, this is your annual opportunity to review the Statement of Investment Policy.
I don't think I have a packet, ma'am. Oh, was it over here?
No, it's mine.
Oh.
Printed it off. And feel free.
Mr. Chairman, it is distributed digitally with the packet, so if you
Oh, okay.
go back and reference it, it would be part of the packet.
Okay, thank you.
So just a quick question. This has always been in place. It's just a renewal of what we already do.
Thank you.
Yes, it is. It's always been in place. We did make changes last year. The changes last year were just addressing my title. It referenced the finance director throughout the investment policy, and my title changed to Director of Administrative Services. Those were the only change that we had over prior year.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
So moved?
Oh,
Or, I'm sorry.
Director Harris did inform me we do not need to take minute action on this, so we're good to go.
Okay.
We can move on to item number 3 on the agenda, consideration of claims. Chair would entertain a motion for the approval of claims.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilwoman Johnson and a second by Councilwoman Pearson-Lewis.
And Mr. Chairman, just for clarification of the motion, could we just go through what the totals are for the liabilities to be paid?
I was just going to ask that, yes, thank you.
Right.
Can we read the,
Consideration claims to be paid in the amount of $113,475.08. Payroll and liabilities for 1/24/2025 in the amount of $500,201.88 for a total of $613,676.96.
I have a motion by Councilwoman Johnson and a second by Councilwoman Pearson-Lewis to consider claims to be paid in the amount of $113,475.08, payroll and liabilities in the amount of $500,201.88, and for a total of $613,676.96. Is there any discussion or amendments? All those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. All opposed say no. Nay. Motion passes. Is there anything additional that needs to come before the committee? There being none, I would adjourn the meeting with consent at 6:52 PM.
He went into the little dining. police, military, special, emergency responders, that they will be safe as they go about protecting all of us, and that we will all be safe as we go home tonight. In the name of Jesus Christ, amen.
Ms. Harris, if you please conduct the roll call.
Yes, Your Honor. Councilmember Eric Carr,
Here.
Councilmember Rebecca Pearson-Lewis,
Here?
Councilmember Mike Bailey,
Here?
Councilmember Carla Borders.
Here.
Councilmember Kyle Larson.
Here.
Councilmember Karen Johnson.
Here.
Mayor Tim Hancock.
I am here. I declare we have a quorum. I'd entertain a motion for the approval of the agenda as presented.
So moved.
Second?
Motion by Councilman Larson, second by Councilwoman Borders. Any discussion, amendments, or additions? All in favor, say aye.
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 I vote aye. Any opposed, say nay. Motion passes. Council committee reports. Council members roundtable. Let's start with you today, Councilman Carr.
Holy moly.
I just wanted to surprise you.
You did. Not much to report on. It's been a busy couple weeks, but was able to attend the WHAM conference on the 23rd through the 25th. The 6-hour boot camp for newly elected officials was outstanding. Joe Coyne does an amazing job, as does the rest of the WHAM staff. And then we're able to catch up with a couple of the presentations, one on facilitating mental wellness in the workplace, and then suicide as a social issue, which I was joined with Councilwoman Johnson. It was a pretty outstanding discussion. So definitely would like to invite more discussion from that. It was pretty profound. And then we were able to catch up with several of the state legislators during the conference, so went well. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilwoman Pearson-Lewis.
Excellent. Had a few meetings in the last few weeks. Well, the Riverton High School had their speech and debate tournament, and also Ronthon, which were excellent and well-attended. And the city, tried out something new with the chamber, and they had some food trucks there, and it was great to support local community, and it was just, I think it went really well. And, the people that were coming in from around the state were really excited about it. So we've really appreciated them for that. On January 28th, I went to Rotary Club, and I presented there, and did that with some speech kids. We were talking about an upcoming an upcoming resolution that will be in front of City Council hopefully in the next few weeks. On January 28th, with several of you, I toured the water treatment, wastewater, public works facility. I was so impressed by all the stuff that the city does for the citizens. This was really, actually, it was way more impressed than maybe it should have been. I was really excited about it. Came home and told my kids all about it, and even have told my students about several things that the city's doing. That was just so cool. And then yesterday was at the rec, our rec board with Karen. We had a great meeting, and we're awarding the money to several projects in Riverton that are going to be really awesome, that will help the city out and really improve the city. So that's what I've been doing. Yeah.
Council President
Okay.
Bailey.
Thank you. Again, I didn't have any official meetings since we met last, but again, I did attend the Ronthon. I had a couple of grandsons from out of town come in, and man, there was a lot of people there. What 40-something teams, and there was kids laying everywhere. I mean, you couldn't hardly walk down the hall. I mean, so it was amazing, and they had, a great turnout, and it's a great event to promote the community and support the kids and all that kind of stuff. Brings a lot of people to town. So, and then again, I did attend the city services that we had last Tuesday. And again, it always is neat to see all the little things that most of us don't realize happen to make, the water turn on when you turn on the shower, and the water to go down when you flush the toilet, and what they do with it all everywhere from all the way through that process. It always amazes me that the city of Riverton in the wintertime, when nobody's irrigating, uses 1.6 million gallons a day, I think is what they said. And, that's a lot of water, a lot of water. So, thanks to our city staff and all the things that they do and keeping all of these things running. And again, the city services folks were out plowing snow and cleaning up the streets, and, I think they've done a great job so far. We can just not get 2 feet of snow in one day, that really helps a lot too. But that's all I have, thanks.
Thank you. Councilwoman Borders.
Well, Your Honor, I haven't had any meetings in the last couple weeks, but I do have some things to tell everybody about. PAWS is going to be doing several things for Valentine's Day. They are doing a Valentine for the lovely little pets down there. So if you'd like to sponsor one, they're going to hang Valentines on the cages. And if you're interested in doing that, you can call PAWS. You can also email them at pawsofriverton@gmail.com. Their phone number is 857-6002. And I may be a little off on those items just because they're upgrading the website and doing a new phone system. But as far as I know, those are good phone numbers right now. They're also doing a kissing booth. This is going to be held at the Chamber of Commerce, and you have a chance to go get your picture taken with a cute little four-legged friend. They have a pup there that loves to kiss people, so you can go down there and on February 14th and 15th from 12 p.m. to 4 p.m. at the Chamber of Commerce to get your picture taken in the kissing booth. And then also they're doing a glazing party, so on February 8th from 12 to 4 at CWC Arts Room 113. For $20, you can go in there and glaze a heart and put your pet's name on it. So any information you might want to inquire about, you can send emails to Nita, N-I-T-A, @cwc.edu. That's Nita Kehoe at the college. And then they have a flyer for sponsorship opportunities for the annual Paws and Pearls banquet. This year, it's called Phantom of the Popera, play on paws. So if you're interested, you can get a hold of Pamela Canham. Her number's 840-0741. You can reserve a table. They have sponsorship opportunities, so just give Pamela a call with questions. And I did just want to mention the tour was really awesome, and the one thing I didn't hear was the Public Works Department and the equipment that they have down there to remove the snow, do the trash, everything that they do. It's a fine oiled machine, and it's just impressive as heck to see it. And one thing that's really cool is they fit all of those trucks. Those trucks come in bare when they are purchased, and then the guys down there in Public Works put them together. They put the blades on, and they do all that stuff. So it's pretty impressive. So I just want to thank them because they're out plowing the streets at 3 in the morning when we're all nice and toasty sleeping. So thank you. That's all I have.
Thank you. Councilman Larson.
Gee willikers. I haven't had any meetings since the middle of the month, but the most impressive thing is our street people that keep track of the snow and keep the roads black of snow. And let me tell you, they are wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilwoman Johnson.
Well, I have been relatively busy. I too attended the tours of the city facilities this last week. Pretty impressive. It's actually really interesting to see what each piece of equipment can handle and what they do to know what our capabilities are within the city. So that was pretty interesting. The water treatment plant's amazing. What goes through it just so that we have clean drinking water. Although they did say that the wastewater plant was cleaner than the, so I don't know, but I agree with that. I wasn't going to try it, but we'll take their word for it. But pretty impressive, and great job to the city crews for keeping our city streets clean this year. This has been a job well done, and I think a lot of that goes to Mr. Eggleston and what he does to make that happen, so thank you. Please echo that. I also attended the WHAM conference in Cheyenne and had an opportunity to do the boot camp for newly elected officials. It was incredibly informative. It shared a lot of information about the city's accounts and how they're handled and how they are managed, and the do's and don'ts and the cans and can'ts, and it was very, 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 very helpful. I also attended the suicide awareness and prevention. They tend to think now that suicide is more of a social issue now, and they're introducing that into different areas and how to look at it, how to address it, how to recognize it. It was very profound to listen to some of that. I also attended the grant writing session and learned a lot about that. The state now has a program that will help you select grants, write grants, manage grants, and help you choose what's a good fit, especially if you're new to grant writing or you have absolutely no idea how to write a grant. They just started this program 3 or 6 months ago. I can't remember now. But it's really, really cool that they're doing this. I was at the rec board meeting last night. Was that last night? I don't remember. I lost track. Anyways, did the rec board meeting and awarded some grants to participants. It was really hard. There's a lot of good things going on in Riverton, and so that was interesting. A reminder that the Fremont County Law Enforcement Foundation banquet is this Saturday. Governor Gordon and his wife were very kind and purchased a corporate table for our local law enforcement officers to attend. So that was pretty amazing. They have lots and lots of good stuff going on. So hope to see everybody there. And that's all I have.
Thank you. Mr. Butterfield.
Thank you, Your Honor. I want to make note that we will have a Fix Our Road Citizens Committee meeting this upcoming Monday at 11 o'clock. That will be held in the bullpen area of City Hall. And if anybody wants to attend, that is open to the public. And the committee does value citizen feedback as they're prioritizing the use of the optional 1% tax and the projects that are going to be moving forward. There will also be a planning commission meeting this Thursday at 5:30, and that will be held here in council chambers. The planning commission will consider a replat application at that time. I'd like to commend our team for the constant work that they do to seek out grants, apply for grants, and then receive them. Mr. Eggleston and his team will be traveling to Cheyenne this week to go before the SLIB board as it relates to a mineral royalty grant that the city submitted several months ago. Currently, we have favorable prioritization for that grant, and we're hopeful to see action from the SLIB board on that. This grant specifically makes improvements to water and sewer lines that are aged and undersized in the Spruce Street area, so just west of City Hall in that neighborhood. And that's just one example of many grants that our team goes after, and I do appreciate the proactive nature of our team, and also the Administrative Services Department and Ms. Harris for the way that they manage those grants. It's fun to get money, but it always comes with additional work and requirements, and we pay very close attention to that so that we comply with the grant assurances of the state and federal monies that we receive. I don't have too many other things to update at this time, except I appreciate the TAD committee meeting today and reviewing applications from community entities. This is a wonderful program that's made available by the Wind River Visitor Council, and we have opportunity to prioritize a portion of the lodging tax dollars to directly market and benefit the Riverton community. There were several applications that were very valuable. The committee received over $177,000 worth of requests and had to consider that there's only about $86,000 worth of TAD money that would be available in calendar year '25. The committee is working hard and will have recommendations for the governing body to consider at the upcoming business meeting. So that would be the third Tuesday of this month. I'd also like to just make reference that the legislative session is still in full swing. Deadlines for filing bills and Senate files has come and gone, and there are 555 total legislative items that were filed this year. There are several that have already failed because they weren't introduced. Others have already moved through and are waiting for consideration by the opposite house. And I would like to say that you also have an engaged team here of city staff members, but also representatives through the Wyoming Association of Municipalities, the Airports Coalition, the Wyoming Association of Clerks and Treasurers, WAMCAT. I'm trying to avoid the acronyms. That's hard for me. And also the Wyoming Association of Sheriffs and Chiefs of Police. There are several groups that team with the city of Riverton to ensure that we track legislation and specifically provide information to our elected officials about how certain bills or files will impact us positively or negatively. And with 555 files and bills, that's a lot of work. I do encourage folks to go to wyoleg.gov to track any potential legislation, but also the Wyoming Association of Municipalities website does have a tracker for priorities that they have, and as we're a municipality, we pay very close attention to that. With that, Your Honor, I'll yield the floor.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. A couple of things, I guess, to bring up. First off, we have upcoming remodel of bathrooms over at Sunset, replacing the doors. Some of the, I guess, plumbing, for lack of a better word, planning on insulating the roof. So if you see anybody over at the bathroom on Sunset and wondering what the heck they're doing, they might be fixing it, or they might be just lurking around, who knows. But do be aware of that going on. Had an opportunity to attend WHAM. We tried to kind of divide and conquer, so I didn't attend the same ones that Councilman Carr and Councilwoman Johnson attended. Really enjoyed the opportunity to meet with some folks from the 211 program. We're going to try to get them here at a future meeting. For those who aren't aware of 211, 211 is, well, I guess, for lack of a better word, you'd call it the 411 on community services being provided. And so part of what they try to have is a list of different services and organizations within the community that provide services, especially for people who are in need or anything like that, but it can be for a lot of different things. You can actually access their webpage at wyoming211.org, and has a lot of different resources available in the community. It's not something that's government run, which I think a lot of people don't know. It's a separate organization, and their whole point, though, is to try to have people find some ways to get help in their community, but not a 911 kind of level of help. So they came and presented to us, I think, 2 years ago. So just visited with the new director, and I think she was supposed to come by City Hall today.
Yes, Your Honor. She did come by and left a few items for me to distribute to the council. We missed each other as I was in another meeting, but we are coordinating, and I know she does want to come back and present to you.
So we just need to get that figured out when she can come in, but I think it would be good. One of the things that's good about it is this is meant to be something where if you're a part of an organization that is assisting others in different ways, get yourself on the list. because really it's only as good as people actually are at putting their name out there or their organization out that they work with. So had an opportunity to meet the new executive director there and excited to work with her. I did attend a meeting on gaming, not video gaming, but gaming, as in horse races or historic horse races, that kind of thing. Very interesting presentation in terms of hearing how all of that works. For example, if you go down to the Derby Club and you were wanting to play on one of the games there, rather than it being based on complete chance if you put money into one of the machines, it's based on you basically betting against everybody else in the state who is on that same race, basically. Interesting idea. The city and state get a certain portion of it. It was very interesting to hear just the different ways that gaming has changed in Wyoming. One of the things that I hadn't quite realized is it used to be that it was illegal in the state of Wyoming, of course, to be involved in, some of these, poker or anything like that that would be online. And what they're trying to do is make sure that it's legal, but that the state gets their cut. So that's part of what's going on, and had some discussion there, and very interesting how they're able to do things like with online gambling or that kind of thing, that they are able to figure out where people are from so that they can determine if it's okay for them to be on the site or not. So, interesting presentation. Was at the Rotary Club meeting. It was kind of funny. I'm actually glad that Councilman Carr wasn't there, or we might have had issues. Because we had Councilwoman Becca Pearson, who was there with her students. We had Council President Bailey there, and myself. And normally, as a member of the Rotary Club, Councilman Carr might have been there, but you didn't make it. So I'm glad we didn't have to advertise a Rotary meeting. But it was a good presentation from some of our youth in terms of wanting to find different ways to be more involved in the community. Really appreciated that presentation, and I hope we can continue to have more of those ideas going forward. I get letters, or I have, for the last 2 years from some of the youth that I think are in the government class. And I didn't get as many this year as I did last year. I think they figured that I wasn't good at writing back. I got them in December. I finally have written them back. I just need to get it mailed. That's the next part.
And Your Honor, that's not the reason, is they were writing more to the state level this year.
Oh, I was just teasing anyway. But I really do think we've got some great youth in our community with some good ideas, and that they want to be involved, and appreciate them willing to step up. Really enjoyed the tour of the city facilities. I think that was a good opportunity. It's not even just that they put on the decals. They have a chassis that comes in, and they build it out from there for the recent snowplow. So they did not get a lot that came in prepared. They had to build all of it. I will say I actually got up in one of the snowplows. They let me.
Yeah.
Which I think they weren't sure if they were going to or not. There was some discussion. But compared to how they used to do things in some of our older snowplows, it's basically just a little joystick to be able to run the plow mechanism and everything. And they didn't let me put it in gear, but I was able to move the plow blade a little bit. So thank you for that, Brian.
Next time you can drive.
Made my day. But it was good to see just how much the city staff have been trying to make things better for our staff members, and try to stay on top of new technologies, new ways to do things that make sense and help things to be streamlined and faster. And I would have to say that Dan Adcock, who's the operations director, he was more excited about that than just about anything I've seen him excited about. He tends to be a little bit serious sometimes, and it was almost like seeing him in a candy store or something, to sit there showing off what he had and being like, this is how it works, and I was impressed. I will say that when we were at WHAM, I had a comment that was made by the Lander, one of the Lander staff. What is Lance's title?
Your Honor, that's Public Works Director.
Oh, he is. Okay, I wanted to make sure that's what his title was before I said that. He said, for once Riverton got their plowing done before before Lander did. We had a fight outside afterwards, but it's okay now. But it was funny to hear that, and I really put all the credit for that on Dan Adcock and on Brian Eggleston. I appreciate your hard work with it, and I would encourage folks, I know that we've tried to do things to encourage and help our police officers to see support, and I strongly encourage that as well. Please continue to bring items to the police department. It's my understanding they're big fans of energy drinks, especially the night shift, so if you want to do something to help out our police officers, feel free to bring by. They tend to drink Monster, am I right, Chief? That's the drink of choice. So you can always bring Monster energy drinks by the police department. But I would encourage you also to stop by Public Works, bring them something too. I brought some donuts over there just a couple of weeks ago. It was funny because I got there just a little bit too late. Usually I can catch them between shifts. And I gave them to, so everybody had kind of spread out and they were with the different pieces of equipment and everything. And I gave the donuts to Dan Adcock, and they kind of swarmed him. So I would just encourage you to recognize our plow drivers need some love, and would remind you, please, please, please be careful when they are out working. They had mentioned they've had way too many close calls. Give them plenty of room. You may not realize how wide their equipment is when you're driving by. It's not like some of the other vehicles that, fit easily within the lane. They might take up the whole lane. So when you're going by the city equipment when it's working, would remind you to give them a wide berth. Same with our plows on the highways as well. We've had deaths in this community from people trying to pass plows on the highway. So please be careful and be aware they're out there trying to make things more drivable and everything. So, but I was really taken by the great staff that we have. Everybody from wastewater treatment to the water treatment plant to the public works, they do really good work, and they really believe in what they're doing, and they really are dedicated to their mission, and I appreciate that. So that's it for me. We'll move on. Communication from the floor. Anyone in the audience wishing to address the council on an item that is already set for a public hearing, you'll be given an opportunity to speak during that public hearing. I would ask you whether you speak then or whether you speak now, that you would keep your comments to 5 minutes for individuals, 10 minutes for members of a group. And by that I mean if you have more than one member of a group, split up your time so that you're like, 3 minutes for this person, 3 minutes for this person, that sort of thing. I'd ask you to address all comments and questions to the chairman. Refrain from the use of individual names. Try to keep comments directed to the issues under consideration. Refrain from making comments of a personal nature that would reflect on the character or conduct of another person. Personal criticism, ridicule, name-calling. I would ask you also to avoid things like fighting words, those sorts of things. But if you want to make any comment now, just in general, you can come on up to the podium, tell us your name, and if you're with an organization, the group you're with. If you want to speak during an item that is set on the agenda, feel free to get my attention, and while we're in discussion with the council, if you'd like to speak, just raise your hand and we'll give you an opportunity to speak. Do be warned, if you come up to speak, we might ask you questions. Not that I'm trying to discourage you, but just to be aware. Would ask you still to keep your time to 5 minutes for individuals and 10 for groups if it's in that situation. So if there's anyone who wishes to come up and speak, feel free and come up and identify yourself and the organization you're with.
Yeah. Good evening. I'm Jessie Lee, and I just want to invite people to an event that Riverton Peace Mission has reserved a room at the Public Library for next Tuesday, the 11th, from 6 until 8 p.m. And I guess for simplicity's sake, we're just calling it Let's Talk, just an opportunity to get people together and using a talking circle format where people can share concerns. I know there's a lot of concerns in the community about what's happening nationally and how this is going to affect us in our community, also, you know, with the state legislature, and a lot of rumors going out regarding, for example, you know, people being told that they better have their tribal ID with them, or they might risk being detained and those kind of things. So it's just an opportunity for people to talk and share their concerns and, you know, what we're doing to take care of ourselves, and being able to keep in touch with their city council members, the state representatives, federal representatives, and so everybody's invited.
Thank you, appreciate it, Ms. Lee. And you said that's at the library next Tuesday, the 11th, from 6 p.m.?
Yeah, 6 to 8, so, yeah.
And do you know which room that's in? I don't.
Yeah, it's going to be in the community room, yeah.
Okay. I just know sometimes they have events that are in the community room because the rest of the library is closed, or just kind
Right, yeah, this will just be in the community room, yeah.
of. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Anyone else?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm Cindy with the Chamber. I think everyone knows who I am by now. Just going to update you on a few things. I'm going to give you some flyers here on our upcoming events.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You can always just give us a pile and make Eric pass it down. Oh, I could, yes. Thank you. That's what we keep them around for.
Yeah,
Thank you.
good at that.
Thank you.
Just want to update you, everything's going really well at the Chamber. We're just plugging along, and we've got the Lunch and Learn event, as you see, this Friday. 307 Makerspace is going to put on the presentation, so that should be interesting. I think there's a lot of unknown about 307 Makerspace if you've not been there or looked at what they do, so it should be a good presentation. And then we've got the after hours on the 20th. It's going to be at the Benessery Clinic. Wyoming Title's the other sponsor, with the Cats Museum as our nonprofit, so that should be fun. We've gotten some good publicity here in the last couple weeks in the news, which is refreshing, about our food trucks that we arranged for the Ronthon and the speech and debate, and also the presentation that Kathy and I brought about 3 weeks ago. That was in the news as well, so that was good stuff for the Chamber. So I have been working with Wyoming Business Council and also a couple other entities. We're doing some what we call BRE work, business retention and expansion. And the Wyoming Business Council is starting a program called BizLink, which is going to bring about a lot of resources for businesses for different problems that they encounter. And so the Chamber, as well as other entities, can get that to businesses when they're running up against problems or headaches that, you know, they can't overcome. We're hoping we can help them with that. So a lot going on. So that's all I've got. Any questions?
Any questions?
Okay, thanks.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I have an appointment on Friday, or I would love to be there, especially Makerspace. David's always great to hear from. He's just Smart, much smarter than I am. Anyone else? All right, we'll move on. Consent agenda, if the Administrative Services Director, could you please read the consent agenda items by title only?
Yes, Your Honor. Approval of the minutes, January 1st, 2025 regular council meeting. Approval of the minutes, January 21st, 2025 executive session. Approval of the minutes, January 28th, 2025 work session. Approval of the minutes, February 4th, 2025 Finance Committee meeting. And approval of the Finance Committee recommendations, February 4th, 2025.
And from the Finance Committee, Chair, what were the Finance Committee recommendations?
Consideration of claims to be paid in the amount of $113,475.08. Payroll and liabilities for 1/24/2025 in the amount of $500,201.88 for a total of $613,676.96.
All right, I'd entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Councilwoman Borders with the motion, Councilwoman Johnson with the second. Any other discussion or amendments? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
I vote aye. Any opposed, say nay. Motion passes. Next up, public hearing and consideration of ordinance 25001, first reading, amending Riverton Municipal Code, Chapter 504, alcoholic beverages, hours of operation. Could we get the Administrative Services Director's report on this, please?
Yes, Your Honor. On November 14th, 2024, as we prepared for the upcoming 25-26 liquor licensing term, city staff met with local liquor license holders for an informational session. The meeting covered key topics like the renewal process, event permits, DUI task force initiatives, Safe Ride, and TIPS training. It was also a chance for business owners to ask questions about local liquor laws and general requirements. During the meeting, some license holders brought up the idea of extending Sunday service hours. They pointed out that the current 12 p.m. to 10 p.m. window makes it challenging to offer things such as morning drinks for Sunday brunch, to accommodate tournament schedules, and to serve customers who want to watch sporting events at local bars and restaurants. To address this, city staff looked into liquor license service hours in other municipalities across the state. I actually performed research on 10 different municipalities, and all of the cities allowed the same service hours every day of the week, including Sundays. To better support local businesses and stay in line with these communities, the staff is proposing a change to the city ordinance. Under this proposal, liquor sales would be allowed from 6 a.m. to 2 a.m. every day, with drive-through sales limited to 6 a.m. to 12 a.m. This adjustment would give businesses more flexibility while keeping our policies consistent with the rest of the state. And with that, I would stand for any questions that you may have.
All right, Administrative Services Director, Ms. Harris, could you please read ordinance 25001 by title only?
Certainly. A proposed ordinance amending Title V, Business Licenses and Regulations to revise Chapter 5.04, Alcoholic Beverages, Section 5.04.040, Hours of Sale, Section 5.04.120, Subsection A, Paragraph 1A, Liquor License Requirements, Restrictions by Category, Delivery of the Riverton Municipal Code, and repealing all ordinances or parts of ordinances in conflict therewith, and providing for an effective date.
Thank you. I'd entertain a motion to open the public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
Councilman Larson with the motion, Councilman Bailey with the second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. I vote aye. Motion passes. I declare the public hearing open. This meeting will be conducted in accordance with state statutes and other applicable laws. I'd ask those individuals wishing to address the council, approach the podium, identify yourself for the record.
Mayor Hancock and council, Ron Warpness, I think I couldn't let you get by without my comment on something of this import. First of all, I'd just like to comment on Councilman Bailey's mentioning the Ron Thon. I knew Ron Thon well when he was around here, and what a huge loss to our community when he died, young. So and he left a something that we can all be proud of. So that's, and then I wanted to remark on Councilman Johnson's having the police foundation up at the Chandel Event Center. I got to get a plug in there. So on the 8th, this coming Saturday. So if you can make time, why, that'd be a good one to go to. But on the proposed ordinance that we're talking about now, changing of the bar hours on Sunday to match normal hours for the rest of the week. Currently, bars can be open 20 hours a day from 6 a.m. to 2 a.m. Sundays, the bars are open 12 noon to 10 p.m. is my understanding. I'm not sure about the hours, but I know Mia just had that. But, and apparently that's not enough hours, you know, so we have to try to expand it. There are 168 hours in a week, and why not just open it up 24 hours a day, take all the heartburn out of it and just move on, would be one solution. But historically, when I was growing up around here, bars were closed all day on Sunday. You couldn't buy anything on Sunday. And it was later changed from 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. And now we want to improve on that. But my grandmother, Mrs. Roy Martin, was a devout Christian, and she would be rolling over in her grave now to think that this is the direction that we're going. And so I'm speaking on her behalf as well as my own. But when the closing hours were changed from midnight to 2 a.m., even Roy Graham, I don't know how many of you knew Roy Graham, but Roy was a crusty fellow here in town. He owned Graham's Bar, and it's where the Country Cove is now, on that corner. And it was a pretty rough bar, but if you needed an oil field worker, well, you could go into Roy's, and anybody want to work, and you could get a hand. By the time you get out to the job site, they'd probably be sober. But at any rate, Roy made a comment one time. He said, he stated his opposition to changing the hours to 2 a.m. He says, if you guys can't get drunk by midnight, you're not trying, was his comment. So even Roy was against it at that time, and it was changed and to meet the times, I guess. And it just, we've talked a lot about different solutions to alcohol problems that we have, and this seems to be the only solution that we come up with, and that's a pretty sad commentary, I think. We should be going back the other way rather than loosening it up, in my opinion. But I remember something about remember the Sabbath and keep it holy, according to Exodus 20, Book 8. So anyway, I just wanted to share that commentary. I guess if anybody has any questions, I'd be happy to stand for questions.
Any questions?
So, Your Honor, you are, Mayor, you are for keeping it the same or
Or rolling,
shortening it?
shortening, I'd be for shortening. But no, I'd prefer just to leave it the way that it is. And if there's an inconvenience or something and you can't have your alcohol for your brunch, dang, you know, it just, to me, it's just going the wrong direction, but that's my way of thinking about things. So,
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Jana Peterson, I own Ralph's Bar. What Mr. Warpness said, I do disagree with. There is a lot of times at 10 o'clock when we boot everybody out of the bar on Sunday. They're all loading up and heading to the res ride because all county licenses on Sunday are open till 2 a.m. There's a safety issue there too. If we keep them here, we can get the cab for them. Does anybody have any questions?
No, ma'am.
Anyone? Thank you, Ms. Peterson. Any other other public comment?
Seeing none, Your Honor, I'd move to close the public hearing.
Second?
Motion by Councilman Carr to close the public hearing, second by Council President Bailey to do so. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say nay. I vote aye. Motion passes, and I declare the public hearing closed. Thank you, everyone, for attending. I'd entertain a motion to adopt ordinance 25001 on first reading.
So moved.
Second.
Councilman Bailey with the motion, Councilman Carr with the second. And I just sometimes call you Council President.
It's all right, either way.
I'm trying to change. Any discussion?
Your Honor.
Yes, Councilwoman Johnson.
Regarding this, I'm going to speak very frankly. Fremont County, Riverton in particular, has an alcohol consumption problem. And I took it upon myself to look at statistics and a little bit of history to what Mr. Warpness, Mayor Warpness was talking about. It started out as blue law states that did not want alcohol service on Sundays, and it was a religious reason why. And then throughout the years, they allowed municipalities to dictate the hours on Sundays that it could be served. So that's a little bit of history as to what you were speaking to. The reports from 2023 Alcohol and Crime in Wyoming from the Wyoming Association of Sheriffs and Chiefs of Police indicate that Fremont County is one of 3 counties in the top 3 where alcohol was a factor, 55% of custodial arrests in Wyoming. Fremont County was 76.81% alcohol involvement. It also lists methamphetamines, drugs, marijuana. Public intoxication, Fremont County was at 29.90%. We're at nearly 80% for public intoxication in the state. And we need to be making decisions that decrease alcohol consumption and criminal activity associated with that. I see zero reason to extend the hours and give more opportunity for alcohol consumption in our community. And I'm going to stand very, very strong on that. And that's all I have.
Thank you, Councilwoman Johnson. Council President Bailey.
I guess I would just remind everybody that it is already illegal for alcohol establishments to serve anybody that is intoxicated. And so I don't think changing it from 12 noon to 6 a.m. is going to change that. Again, you know, people still have free will to do what they want. And if they want to get plastered, whether they start at 6 a.m. or start at noon, or they just buy extra on Saturday night so they have some for Sunday morning, I don't think that's going to change the overall consumption. You know, in history, we've tried eliminating alcohol, and that doesn't work either. You know, I don't think you could show any statistics that show Sunday morning is any different than any other morning of the week for people that consume alcohol. They're not going to stop on Sunday just because they can't buy on Sunday. So, I mean, I'm for making it more open, and, you know, I don't think it's going to change the overall consumption at all. And I think we should encourage, you know, the bar and liquor store owners to follow the rule, which means don't serve people that are intoxicated. I think that's more of a problem than the hours that we serve them. So, thank you.
Well, and I guess just to remind folks that ordinance, which was made reference to by Council President Bailey, 9.08.110, it is unlawful for any owner, employee, or agent of any establishment which dispenses alcoholic beverages to sell, give away, or otherwise furnish any alcoholic beverage to a person who is visibly intoxicated, is intoxicated to a degree which renders him or her incapable of caring for his or her own safety, or is intoxicated to a degree which renders him or her a nuisance to the public at large. I don't say that in favor or against anything, but just to say that's the law, I guess, that was made reference to. Any other discussion?
Your Honor.
Councilwoman Borders?
So I have to agree with Ms. Peterson. I sure don't want to have to be coming back from somewhere and have someone at Resurride or up in Du Bois or in Lander on their way back to Riverton and take out a family because, because here we have a little bit of control, so we can call a cab for someone. We've got WRTA doing complimentary rides home if someone's intoxicated. So we have a little bit more control here. I see Karen's point, Councilmember Johnson, sorry. Gotta be formal. So that's kind of how I feel about that. And then I wanted to ask the chief, not to put you on the spot, but I'm gonna put you on the spot. What are your feelings about this from a law enforcement perspective?
From the chief's perspective, I'm here to enforce the laws that you put in place.
Good.
Well done. Your Honor.
Yes, sir. Councilman Carr.
Just one very quick comment. In recorded history, legislating morality has never worked once, and it tends to repress and inspire to go the opposite direction. So that's all I have to say.
Your Honor.
Oh, yeah, go ahead, Councilwoman Pearson Lewis.
Having a debate background, I've done research on this, and extending bar times does in fact increase violence and crime, from what I can tell, from what I've researched across the board. I don't know, though, because I do see her point, because it might be different in our situation if they're going to a different town and coming back. So I'm just saying, I'm not sure, what that looks like in our town. So I'm kind of split on this because I'm thinking it could be different with us. It might, in our instance, make it safer, because if they're going somewhere else to drink, I'm not sure, that's.
Problematic, yeah.
That, I'm not sure, I'm looking at statistics and they're saying that it does in fact make it worse, but then if they're going somewhere else to do it, I'm not sure. That's a tough call, so I'm just, and I'm not sure that it's legislating morality as much as, I'm not sure that that's what this is doing. By not doing it, I'm not sure that that's the best way to say it, but because I think it is a safety issue either way that you look at it, but it is a tough call. My question is, and my serious question is, why are we doing this? That's my question. I'm trying to look at at it, and is there somebody here to speak to it? Is there a reason that we're doing it?
And I think this could, if you'd like to address it, Ms. Harris, or I could, we both had attended a meeting with quite a few, not a very large percentage of our liquor license holders. And two of the things we had discussed, and these are the next two ordinances, were, number one, the possibility of tips training, which is almost exactly what Council President Bailey had made reference to, as being a requirement for liquor license holders. And then two, just anything else that they had concerns about or anything that they wanted to talk to the council about. And this was one of the things they had discussed. Now, mind you, it's my understanding, some of the establishments that had spoken said, we don't mind at all opening later. We don't see the need to increase our hours. We'll probably stick with the hours as they are now, even if you made the change. But for the ones that did want the change, they were like, we're missing out on business, particularly for games, that kind of thing. Just as mentioned by Ms. Harris. Did I miss any of that?
No, I don't think you did. The other one was pertaining to a lot of the two specific restaurants in town, considering Easter brunch, Mother's Day brunch, different things like that. They wanted to be able to offer some type of a beverage prior to noon.
Okay.
And they may or may not have been doing that previously without recognizing it was an issue.
Okay, so Your Honor, let me get this clear. So it's not necessarily going to happen with everyone, correct? It's just allowing it to happen, and it's probably not extending it necessarily on one way, because the research I said is, that I looked at was like if it's extending it into the early hours, not extending it the other way.
Yeah.
So most of them were looking at 10 in the morning, is that, or that?
The hours currently on Sunday, you can come back up
Come on
if you
up,
want
yeah.
to, Ms. Peterson. You still have 4 minutes left.
One of the problems that we've had is a lot of the year-end pool and dart tournaments. There is a lot of people that are playing the darts in the pool. And you have more teams, takes you longer to get the year-end tournament done. And I'll be honest, there's been times, which my rule is on Sundays, everybody has to be out by 10. State rule is 10:30. But I'm the one that signs the paychecks. So they have to go by my rules. And there has been issues with trying to finish up a pool or a dart tournament by 10 o'clock.
Well, and I think it's important to note too, and Ms. Harris noted this when we were discussing it, is that it used to be that the state actually was the source of the hours. And that changed just recently. How long ago was that?
I believe it was 2021.
I thought it was 2 or 3 years ago. And they moved from the state actually setting the hours to leaving it up to the municipalities. And so now when we were discussing this, it was very surprising to me to hear, not that I'm saying Riverton has to do everything everybody else in the state does, but it was very surprising to me to hear that we were the only ones that kept the reduced Sunday hours around the state. And now, there could be religious reasons for that, there could be some other safety reasons for that, but that was it. So that's been part of the discussion. Go ahead.
Yeah, can I add
You
to
could
the-
tell us your name?
Yeah, Lindsay Murphy. I'm the manager at Ralph's. During the pool and dart tournaments as well, not all of these people drink. So it's, to say, hey, you got to go home. And they're like, I've had soda all night. What the heck? I want to finish my games. Well, they can. So it gets to that point. We also do provide taxis for people to go home. We pay for them for people to go home if there is a situation where they need to go home. So like she said, instead of somebody taking off, going wherever, we can make sure that they get home. And a lot of, I think, the public intoxication is not necessarily people going to bars.
That's a good point. Your Honor, then, so I have another question, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Then does this have to, do these hours have to necessarily be all year long, or maybe they just do it for this, or like, what is that? Maybe that, does that look like that? Maybe can that look, what I'm saying is maybe some bars might adopt it for just the tournaments, and maybe they might adopt it for, year-round. Like it's whatever, it's up to them, correct?
Right. This is just removing the restriction at the city level.
So, but they can do whatever.
Do whatever they want.
Okay,
Right.
that's what I wanted to know. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Councilwoman Johnson, I'm sorry.
Damn.
You're kind of in my left, and I don't know.
That's okay.
I didn't want to forget you. Go ahead.
That's
What
okay.
were you wanting to say?
I just want to respond to a couple of things. Councilman Carr's comment on morality of it. It's not so much the morality part of it, it's protecting our citizens in our town. Taking the extra measure to not give them additional access to what we already have problems with in our community is what I'm looking at. It's not taking away their ability to drink. It's not taking away the fact that they're going to get their alcohol the night before or drink it far into Sunday morning. Anybody can do whatever they want on a Sunday, but we have an obligation to make sure the citizens in our community are safe. And a measure in doing that is by restricting the limit of sales of alcohol, which is a #1 problem in our community. In response to the location of consumption, the 2023 report says that Fremont County had 881 alcohol-related arrests. 760 people didn't reply how they were getting it. However, 29 people said they were getting drunk at bars, and 27 people said they were doing it from retail liquor. The remaining 760 didn't respond. And when I hear that we're giving people rides home and things like this, and that there's laws in place that we're not going to sell to already intoxicated people, we're not enforcing that. Nobody's checking on that already, and it is occurring. And a way to reduce that is to prevent making it more accessible. We have to hold accountability to our folks that have liquor licenses and make sure that they are doing what they should be doing. And making it more accessible is a horrible idea. And supporting making it more accessible, I simply can't understand.
Thank you.
Your Honor.
Yes.
So
Councilwoman
kind of
Borders.
piggybacking on what Ms. Pearson Lewis was saying, I kind of had the same thought is, could we maybe have a permitting process or something so if, and maybe this wouldn't work, but could we do something like that? So if there's a dart tournament, we know it's gonna run late, Super Bowl is gonna run a little bit late, those kind of things, if we could maybe have those on an as needed. I don't know if that would be feasible or if that would work for you.
Could you comment on that at all, Ms. Harris?
Your Honor, I would consider the administrative burden that would be involved in that, only from the perspective that you would have one bar wanting to do a Super Bowl party, 2 bars doing a dart tournament, another bar doing NCAA. I mean, there's all the reasons why the bars that want to stay open later would be applying for those special after-hours permits. So if you wanted to limit it to a certain number of permits per year, possibly, that might be something to consider. But I can see that there would be a lot of special permits issued should you decide to do that. Now, in speaking with the bar owners during the meeting, there were some bar owners that said, even if you expand the hours from 6 to 2, we're not going to be open from 6 to 2. We don't have the staffing for it. We don't have the desire to be open. So I think in bringing this forward, it was more to allow those that had the desire to do it, to allow them to do it. But certainly, it is the council's will, and staff will explore whatever options you'd like us to take a look at for that.
Thank you,
And I
Mia.
appreciate that. I mean, in other words, there is going to be a burden, but it's not impossible. It's something that if we wanted to consider that as an option, we could. Mayor Warpness.
Confuse the issue more. I don't mean to cause so much heartburn for everybody, okay? And having been in your position, I know how difficult some of these things are. And I hear the fuzzing of it. And we can rationalize anything we want to do. If you want to do it, we can come up with 100 reasons of why we should do it. If you don't want to do it, one reason is enough. All right? All I'm interested in doing, okay, when Councilman Carr suggested that it's a moral issue, absolutely. They remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. That's not from Ron Warpness, okay? That's a commandment from God. And if we're a Christian nation, then we're just straying away from that, is the point that I'm suggesting. And rather than heading down that trail farther than we already are, when our Constitution was designed, okay, it was built for a moral nation, okay, an educated and a moral nation. And we just seem to be getting farther and farther and farther away from that. And so when we have the opportunity to come before the public and speak on something that is, I think, that important, then I think it's worthwhile to do it. But I don't, want you to have heartburn over it, and, and I was kind of tongue-in-cheek when I suggested just make it 24 hours a day and solve the problem. That would be the easiest, and the permitting, and, that's crazy. So, anyway, that's my 2 cents worth on it, and you can do what you want to. I don't care. I'll live with it.
Thank you, Mr. Warpness. Councilman Bailey?
Again, I come back to, we all have to be personally responsible for what we're doing. And if we break the law, we deserve to visit with one of our officers and have a problem with that. Whether two old guys want to stop on their way out to go fishing and pick up a 6-pack of beer, and whether they go out to the lake and sit on the shore and drink it, or they drink it on the way to the lake, us preventing them from buying it at 6 a.m. is not going to change that. Because they'll buy their beer the day before, or they'll buy it on the way out of town on the way to go fishing. It's their personal responsibility to make sure they consume properly, or, responsibly, and that they don't drive under the influence and all of that kind of stuff. So again, I just reaffirm that I don't think it matters. I'd be more than willing to make a motion that we just move it to 24 hours a day, like Mayor Warren suggested. But I don't know that that would help the situation either. So if anything, in my opinion, and the bar owner would probably enjoy it, because, I'm sure all their fun starts at midnight, between midnight and 2 a.m. That's when all the trouble is, right? The police officers would probably agree with me on that. If we're going to restrict it, we need to restrict it at the end, not the beginning. But I think we ought to just go with what we've got. So.
All right. Well, I think we've had good opportunity for discussion. Any last words before we vote? I appreciate the discussion. I think it's a lot of good things to think about. I do, I guess one of the things I will say is I share Councilwoman Johnston's concerns. When we were discussing the idea of allowing alcohol in City Park, which there had been a resolution that had been previously made by the council that we would allow alcohol at any of the other parks by permit. Let's be very clear, by permit only, right, Chief? Anyway, that we were considering allowing it at City Park, partly because we had people who wanted to have events there that would serve alcohol, that sort of thing. I understood the concerns that people had, but I think with the strategy of wanting to have the park used more rather than used less, had voted as a council to allow that. Nothing came crashing down around our ears. Not that I'm saying anybody's saying that's going to happen, but it turned out pretty well, I think. We haven't had any other permits, though, really much at City Park for alcohol, but then on the other end of things, you read, and this is the report from WASCOP, which I think is the one you were looking at, Councilwoman Johnson, maybe, that DUI is unquestionably the crime that has the greatest impact and consequence in Wyoming. It accounts for the greatest number of custodial arrests. It's the cause of more deaths and serious injuries than any other crime. And DUI arrests have accounted for an approximately average of 28% of all custodial arrests in Wyoming for the last 10 years. And a third of all traffic fatalities are a result of impaired driving. Mm-hmm. Now, which way does that cut, right? Because we've been talking about if we close the bars here, people will go elsewhere, much the same as happened during Prohibition, right? Where you'd have people say, well, I can't get it easily here, I'm going to go here. I'm just gonna go somewhere else where it's cheaper or easier or whatever it is. I'm sure Utah has that issue, right? Where you have watered down beer, and so they're like, well, we'll drive across the border and get it here. So then that means maybe driving under the influence, maybe not. I mean, it sounds like you'd get people cabs whether they were done drinking at 10 or at 2. But anyway, a lot of considerations. I appreciate the conversation, though. All right, I think we're ready to vote. All in favor of passage of ordinance 25001, say aye.
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 On the opposed, say nay.
Nay.
Right, I vote aye. So we'll just, you got that? Okay. Okay, thank you, everybody, for the discussion. Moving on, public hearing and consideration of ordinance number 25002, first reading, amending Riverton Municipal Code, Chapter 504, Alcoholic Beverages Edition, Alcohol Server Training. Administrative Services Director's report, please.
All these are a direct result of having an informational alcohol meeting.
Very true.
So during the same November 14th, 2024 informational meeting with liquor license holders, a representative from Fremont County Prevention provided details on alcohol server training, including the Training for Intervention Procedures program, also known as TIPS. TIPS is a widely used training program in Wyoming that educates servers on responsible alcohol service. While the state does not mandate the training, statutes, Wyoming statutes 12-2-401 and 12-2-402 authorize the Department of Revenue to establish rules and guidelines. So essentially, if you're going to have alcohol training, it needs to include certain things. To promote consistency and responsible service across all establishments, city staff is proposing ordinance 25-002, which would require all employees serving alcohol, whether at newly licensed or existing establishments, to complete a state-approved alcohol server training program. Key provisions of the proposed ordinance include mandatory training for employees at all licensed establishments, a requirement for new hires to complete training within 3 months of starting, annual proof of training to be submitted at the time of liquor license renewal. Employees must maintain valid certification throughout their employment. Many license holders noted that they already require server training for their staff. This ordinance would standardize the requirements citywide, ensuring all establishments follow the same guidelines. And with that, I would stand for any questions, Your Honor.
Thank you. If you could read ordinance 25002 by title only.
Yes, Your Honor. An ordinance amending Title V, Business Licenses and Regulations to revise Chapter 5.04, Alcoholic Beverages, by creating Section 5.04.060, Alcohol Server Certification Required of the Riverton Municipal Code, and repealing all ordinances or parts of ordinances in conflict therewith, and providing for an effective date.
Thank you. I'd entertain a motion to open the public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Councilwoman Borders, Council Vice President Borders, second by Council President Bailey. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed, say nay. I vote aye. I declare the public hearing open. The hearing will be conducted in accordance with state statutes, other applicable laws. I'd ask those wishing to speak to the council to come forward to the podium, identify yourself for the record. And as noted, if you can keep your comments to 5 minutes for individuals, 10 minutes for groups. Thank you. Is there anyone in the audience wishing to speak?
Seeing none, Your Honor, I'd move to close the public hearing.
I'll second.
A motion by Councilman Carr to close the public hearing, second by Vice President Borders. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. I vote aye. Motion passes. Declare the public hearing closed. We still do allow, for the most part, public comment during the discussion. A little bit interesting, I guess, but.
Yeah.
I'd entertain a motion to adopt ordinance number 25002 on first reading.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Council Vice President Borders, second by Council President Bailey. Discussion, amendments.
Your Honor.
Your Honor. Go ahead.
I'll let her go first.
Go ahead.
because She got ignored.
I'm on board with this one. I just have a quick question. I don't want to be implementing new ordinances or agreeing to a new ordinance, I guess I should say. If, I guess my question is, how is this going to be enforced, or how often will compliance checks be completed to make sure that this is happening? I feel like once a year annually isn't enough. With the changing of employees all the time, I think that there's a lot of employee changes. So I'm just wondering how we're going to stay on top of it to make sure that this is being conducted within 3 months of hire.
Ms. Harris, could you address that?
Your Honor, of course, we are going to require it as a part of the renewal license period each year or upon a new or transfer of any liquor license. I know the police department has in the past received alcohol and tobacco compliance grants in which they would also check for those. I can't speak to their receipt of those grants at this time. That would be something we'd need to defer to the chief. But we are open to any and all ideas that the council would like to provide or require with regards to maintaining compliance outside of the transfer process or in addition to.
I guess from your end, it would probably be the yearly transfer process. From the enforcement end, it would be alcohol compliance checks. Chief, any comment there?
I like to see, I've been in communities where the police department was there to issue taxi licensing, stuff like that. So we could, as soon as a new employee is hired, process them at the police station, where they'd have a card that we could issue, and they would have to give at the time that we do a spot check.
Well, I will say that I think the way that the ordinance reads now is that you would be, the employer would be required to have, so first off, the tips training, you get a certificate. Correct me if I'm wrong, a card. That card, I think, would easily be something that could be produced upon demand. However, that being said, we're also asking the employers just to keep track of them. And I think it would be easy enough to have the employers, anytime there would be an alcohol compliance check, to provide those cards. The 3-month period really did come from Tana Groomsmith in terms of how often she's able to do the tips training and trying to make sure it's something that can be done. So first off, there's a couple of different options. First off, there's her training, which is free. If you were to do the training, you can also do it online for a fee. But her training, she can do it on demand. She can do it regularly. I mean, if an employer said, hey, I've got this many new employees, we want to get a training, another employer wanted to do one as well, they can just reach out to her and she can set it up. That was one of our concerns when we were discussing this during the conversation about it, was making sure that this is something that can be done. It's not going to be a large burden on employers, but it's also something that would be reasonable. We did have some discussion, and I appreciated this, from some of the employers regarding the idea of if we're going to mandate the training, we're probably going to pay our employees to go to it, rather than just saying, go to this training and we're not going to pay you for it. And I appreciated that from the employers, recognizing that and making sure that that was something that they were paying their employees for. But anyway, just a little bit about that. I think from the Administrative Services Director standpoint, it would be an annual verification, and then it would be up to the police department to determine how often they would go through and do checks.
Okay.
But I think the idea was that employers would have the cards or a copy of the cards, and hopefully the trainers would have them on hand as well. The ordinance doesn't require them to keep them on hand when they serve, or does it? Maybe I read it wrong.
I didn't see that, but
I didn't, so.
I was just saying, as far as complying, making sure, I mean, if we're going to require that this is a part of their liquor licensing to renew or whatever, we have, I mean, if we're going to implement this, then we also have to adhere to it. And I guess the best way to do it, I would say quarterly, asking them to report quarterly or report every time they have a new hire or something that holds us both in check, that says, we implemented this and we want to work with you on it. So to communicate back and forth to make sure that it's being done, I guess is what I'm trying to say. I just hate to make something a new rule and then once a year we look at it and say, cool, thanks for bringing it in.
Right.
I would have no problem whatsoever doing a photocopy of their tips card, and would probably even laminate it, keep it up on the wall with the liquor license. When the officer comes in, he can look at everybody that has their tips card. Would that be a problem?
Probably an easy way to do it. I mean, I know we just barely went and we were at the wastewater treatment plant and the water treatment plant, and all of their licensure is up on the wall there for anyone to see. So that's actually a good idea too, because then the public can know that you're complying as well. I mean, the way this ordinance stands, you could do that as it stands. It's easy, but it's a good thought. Thank you.
Your Honor,
Council President Bailey?
I've got liquor licenses in other towns, and again, we have our employees do the tips training, and I think it's a great idea. I guess I would just suggest a couple of little tweaks, is I think we should say that the tips training should be, completed annually. I don't think it necessarily has to be 3 months after the license is renewed, because if they had, let's say they hired on and 4 months later the license gets renewed, well, then the person has to take it and they only took it 3 or 4 months before that. So I think if we make it to where the tips training would have to be done annually and within 3 months of being hired, okay, or 3 months of a new liquor license being ordered, amended or applied.
And I think the idea, the use of the word obtaining, the idea was a new license, not necessarily renewing. Does that
It
make
says
sense?
renew, though,
Oh,
I think,
okay.
okay?
Well, we've got an A,
Because
go ahead, I'm
I
curious.
don't think we want to create a huge administrative burden for the license holders or the city to have to, every time somebody hires a new employee for a liquor establishment, have to go, oh, you hired them on June 2nd, you need to have it in by this date. I mean, that's going to be up to the license holder. And again, like, they could keep a copy on site. So if the police had an incident there and they wanted to verify that the bartender was tips trained, they could do that. But I don't think we need to be sending it, Mia having to receive, I mean, how many liquor employees do we have in the city of Riverton? Hundreds, hundreds of people. So we need to make it as simple to, operate as possible.
And I hear you there.
Card you get is valid for 2 years.
Okay?
So, and there is, so-and-so worked over here, and then they didn't like that, so they come to work over here. But it's just, they have the one tips card. It's not like they would have to go through the training again if they went to a different liquor establishment.
So if so, that would make more sense to make it a valid tips card. Then they only have to do it every 2 years as long as they keep it current.
And I think that's the idea. And if I understand correctly, and correct me if I'm wrong here, and if we need to explain it differently in the ordinance to make sure it's clear, I think the idea is if somebody was obtaining a permit, we're saying within 3 months of obtaining a permit, you've got to have tips training, not renewing a permit. So we're not having everybody go through and do tips training once a year. Is that correct?
Your Honor, that's correct. So when you take employment, you have 3 months to go through the process, or when you become a new license holder, you have 3 months. The tips training, if that's the process that's used, it is multi-year. And then the ordinance stands that you have to have proof of completion. So that would mean you have proof that you have an active, completed card. And then if you look at paragraph B, as it relates to a question earlier, it does say that training records for current alcohol service staff will be made available for inspection by law enforcement officers. So they do have to have that available. And I appreciate the feedback that if we institute an ordinance, we have to be ready to enforce an ordinance. But there is a bit of a burden of tracking the turnover of all employees. I believe the idea of doing checks, and as part of those checks, we verify that the employees at that time have their training would be valid. That way, we're not putting the burden on an employer to report every time they hire somebody. We have to keep an active file of every employee within the city of Riverton that's part of a liquor establishment, and then updating that file whenever there's turnover. That is a pretty burdensome process. It's doable, but just know that that would be something that would require quite a bit of administration.
Your understanding of the way this ordinance is, that when they hire someone, they're in charge of keeping track of that record, and if they choose to post it, this ordinance doesn't require them to post it, but they could if they wanted to. So the employer has to keep track of the card, and if an alcohol compliance check were done, then at that point would have to show it to whoever's doing the alcohol compliance check. We're not talking about, though, having to turn in the card or mail the card or proof to Mia. Basically, Mia would be doing the annual. When they do the renewal, she would be getting the proof of it. And other than that, it would be law enforcement who would be able to do the alcohol compliance check on site. Councilor Miller.
One question, when you said not renewal, but issuing, what employees, if they don't have the card, is going to be serving without a card? So they're in violation.
Well, the state statute doesn't require to be serving with a card. I will say most of our liquor license holders already require, personally, I mean, as an employer, and have their, like Mr. Bailey, I think Ralph's already does, require their employees to do tips training.
Correct.
But from.
Prior to serving,
Correct, but that's
within-
not a requirement as it stands right now.
it's not.
From the city side, it is not.
Your Honor, it would be extremely burdensome to have to do that training before you could put them to work. And I know with my DEQ regarding underground storage tanks and all that, again, they give you that 3 months after employment to get the training that you need to be able to perform. Now, you can't do it by yourself, which, again, a responsible business owner is not going to put somebody serving that hasn't been trained all by themselves necessarily, but you got to give them a reasonable amount of time. That employee may not only last 2 weeks, then you're training every 2 weeks, you're training a new person with tips training. So I think this is a reasonable, the 3 months is a reasonable time period to get somebody up to speed and trained and ready to go.
Nonetheless, even if they don't do tips training, as an individual, they are still subject to the same city ordinance
Right.
that requires not to serve to anyone who is visibly intoxicated or unable to care for themselves or creating issues.
Your Honor, couple of suggestions, maybe that might be helpful. Getting with Tana and seeing if she would just routinely, every 3 months, put on a tips training course so that they know that that's available. Whether they hired some, it keeps them within the 3 month period that's allowed to them to get them training. And then maybe having that be a responsibility of our community service officers to do routine checks
Sure.
to make sure that that's just being completed. That way it holds up both ends of the deal.
And I think, as I understand it, when we were speaking with Tana, and I agree, and it might be good to specifically have her here for the second reading, just for discussion purposes. But she already easily does it more than once a quarter, if I understand correctly. But it'd be good to have her here so we can answer that directly.
She's pretty amazing. She would probably just do it, but yeah.
Yeah, I don't think she'd have any issue with that. But then also employers can still do the online course if they wanted to do it that way.
Yeah.
Okay, any other discussion? I try not to cut discussion, but I also try to not have us repeat things too much.
I just wanted to point out that I think it's commendable that our establishments are already doing this, even though they're not required to.
Yeah.
That says a lot about that. And I think it's okay if we send our CSOs in there to do compliance checks. But I personally put a lot of faith in our establishments because they're already doing what they need to do. So I think having some reinforcement would probably be helpful, but
Actually, our CSOs might be good, especially if we have one that's under 21 to do compliance checks. Because I don't know if people know the way that law enforcement tends to do alcohol compliance checks is it's sending somebody.
They're
in.
sneaky,
I
that's
won't
what
give
they
it. I won't give it away. You don't know. I'm not going to tell you how it's done. But anyway,
Now I'm curious.
we can talk offline.
So is it legal for them to break the law while,
Yeah, it's actually
people-
legal. When I was a prosecutor, it was legal for me to possess drugs as long as it was part of a case, right?
well, you're always on a case, right?
There's a lot of exceptions.
Case of Bud Light.
But I mean, there's a lot of exceptions built into the law. I mean, how are you supposed to go to a jury and say, hey, this bag contains small amount of methamphetamine
touching,
if I can't
yeah.
actually possess the bag?
Yeah.
Right, yeah,
Exactly.
exactly.
So there's exceptions built into stuff like that.
It's tricky.
All right, moving on. I think we're ready to vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. I vote aye. Motion passes. DWSF, oh boy, DWSRF loan, number 19, Amendment 1. Ms. Harris, we're just making you do all the work tonight.
I think so.
And we even have more for you tonight with
We
the
do.
quarterly fiscal health report.
I try to get it all done at once. In February of 2002, the City of Riverton took out a $1.7 million loan through the State Loan and Investment Boards, we're going to call it SLIB, through their Drinking Water State Revolving Fund, DWSRF, program to help rehabilitate the water treatment plant. In 2006, the city was able to significantly lower the loan balance using grant funding and returned any unspent funds back to the state. Over the years, the loan has been amended multiple times, with the most recent adjustment setting the principal balance at $720,514 with a 2.5% interest rate. In September of 2023, the staff learned that SLIB was offering interest rate reductions on several loan programs. And seeing an opportunity to save money, the staff submitted a request to lower the interest rates on 7 of the city's loans to 1.5%. Several of the loans were at 4%, a couple of them were at 2.5%. We sought a 1.5% rate. The attached Amendment 1 agreement for loan number 019 reflects this rate reduction and is now presented for approval. SLIB representatives also have confirmed that amendments for the city's remaining loans will be coming soon. I think you'll notice on the loan amendment, it reads Amendment 1, but it goes forth to explain that it had been amended and now finally amended. So I'm not sure why it was labeled Amendment 1, but I did point that out, and we'll be getting those corrected going forward. The state did ask that we move forward with executing this loan agreement.
All right, I'd entertain a motion to approve the amendment to the loan agreement between the Wyoming State Loan and Investment Board, SLIB, and the City of Riverton for the Drinking Water State Revolving Fund, DWSRF, loan number 019.
So moved.
second.
Motion by Councilwoman Johnson, second by Councilwoman Borders. Any discussion? I have to laugh that they also went through and we had to change who's signing and,
So that came from them?
no, I think that was us.
It came from them with the incorrect signatories on there, so they asked us to strike through that and correct it and execute the agreement as it was mailed to us. So.
I was going to say, I recognize that handwriting. I've seen it before.
Your Honor,
Yes, sir.
just a quick question. Does this reset the term of the loan?
Your Honor, it does not. All the other terms remain the same. It's just that the interest rate is reduced. In this particular loan, I included also a copy of our loan inventory in your packet with the loan agreement. And this particular loan is scheduled to expire like next year. So we're not expire, to be paid off next year. So we don't have, we only have a couple payments left on this one. But the other loans that we also received a rate reduction for will be coming forward with longer terms on them. But no change in the terms other than the rate.
They wouldn't let us start over at 1.7 million?
We don't want to.
Would they give us the 1.7 million?
That's right.
Oh, we could use that.
And I noted that, of course, the original promissory note on this was signed by Mayor Eichler. So 2002 for this.
In a minute.
Wow.
Been a little while ago. And I would also note that I appreciate you jumping on this, Ms. Harris. I know we don't have a lot of time left. What would be the amount we're going to save if this is approved by the council today? You know I was going to make you.
I knew you were going to ask that, and I think it's approximately $3,000 on this particular note itself.
Okay. That's enough to take everybody who attends our council meetings for the next month out to Dairy Queen or something?
No, Your Honor.
No, no, sir.
No.
It sounds like Mr. Butterfield has already made plans for the 3,000.
No. You don't deserve ice cream.
We may be able to put granola bars out at the bar, that's about it.
That's true. $3,000 does not go as far as it used to. That's right. Any other discussion? Okay, all in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed, say nay. I vote aye. Motion passed. Airport Road Contract Amendment. Mr. Eggleston.
Thank you, Your Honor. I'll take a turn this time.
Take some heat off of Ms. Harris there. She's probably doing the math because she wants the exact amount for me, but I think 3,000 was enough.
Pretty close. Approaching the council tonight to do a contract amendment with INBERG-MILLER for $55,500. Back in 2011, INBERG-MILLER produced 90% design plans for a portion of Airport Road from Highway 26 up to Job Corps. That road, or they had expectations that the Wyoming Business Council would fund redoing that roadway up to at least Job Corps. That never materialized. As you know, we're always trying to compete for an airport road project. And one of the issues we've always kind of had is our plans up to Job Corps are 90%, but it didn't include up past Job Corps. So what this would do would give us a good set of plans to pursue grants down the road, or if necessary, if we don't get these grants, eventually we're gonna have to redo this road through forests or urban systems. But we need to have a good set of plans to work off. This would get us at least to a point where we wouldn't necessarily have shovel-ready plans, but we'd at least have a good set of cost estimates and a preliminary design to finish that project out, whether it be through now called the Build Fund instead of the Raise. The administration changed the name, or if Force needs to look at funding that project down the road. But at some point, we're gonna have to do something with it, and we need some plans.
Okay, thank you. I'd entertain a motion to approve the contract amendment to the INBERG-MILLER contract for the airport road plans in the amount of $55,000.
So moved. Second.
Motion by Councilwoman Borders, Council Vice President Borders, second by Council President Bailey. Any discussion?
Your Honor,
Yes, sir.
just to note also that right-of-way acquisition's always been one of the issues that have stood in the way of this project, and that's included in that estimate also. So they would get the right-of-way stuff done, so that in the future, if we did get a grant, we'd be able to proceed with it.
And we're not quite shovel-ready with what we're approving here, but we'd be partway there.
We'd have the right-of-way established, and we'd have, they wouldn't be shovel-ready plans, but they'd be very good preliminary plans and a pretty good cost estimate.
Based on the last couple of, let's see, build, raise, bill, whatever we're going to be calling it this week, and whether we're going to be receiving funding this week from the federal government. Have you found that the projects that have been approved that we've been trying, I mean, this is, I thought that I was thinking fourth, but maybe third time that we've. Fourth, that we've been looking for grant money for this. Do you see this making us much more competitive?
It definitely would make us more competitive, having even good, strong preliminary plans. Shovel-ready plans makes it a really good target, but, I mean, we had 90% plans up to Job Corps. The rest of the job was not all that significant up the hill, so.
Okay.
Your Honor,
Yes, sir.
just to reiterate,
Engineer in the house.
yeah, right-of-way is probably 90% of the issue with this project, and having that out of the way, again, just to reiterate, is a huge step. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Your Honor?
Any other, go ahead.
I'm sorry, just so I'm clear and I understand. So what this 55,500 would do, and you're talking about the right-of-way acquisition, on the third page, hang on. On the fourth page of that, under landowner meetings, it says that they would prepare the exhibit similar to the Wyoming Department of Transportation right-of-way record. An airport road crosses land held in the trust for the Wind River Indian Reservation. So are we gonna need the approval from the reservation for that?
Go ahead.
Your Honor, Councilwoman Johnson, the tribes would be probably the easiest to get that accomplished. They've actually passed an amendment or a resolution several years ago granting us that right-of-way, but it was never recorded.
Okay.
Now all their right-of-way goes directly through the BIA. So my concern with the tribes is not as significant as my concern with working with the BIA, which may have changed with the administration as well.
Good times. Any other discussion? Thank you. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed, say nay. I vote aye. Motion passes. Q2 fiscal health report. Ms. Harris?
Mayor Workness just left. He didn't want to hear my report.
I think he was very curious about Airport Road.
Give me
I think
just a
we ought to
moment
have
to set
PD
up.
pick him up and make him stay.
Yeah. Does that work with former mayors?
It's worth a try.
Just get to plug in and connect.
Yeah, there you go.
I thought it was a good idea. I think it's funny how fast Kyle was saying no to that.
Yeah, he was right on that.
Just like that.
No,
We should make a rule, maybe if it goes past 8:30, they have to feed us.
No, I'm with you there.
Yeah.
I'm so used to the movie screen over here, I thought that was the only TV.
Oh, there's one over there.
Over there.
I know. Get these glasses on.
Only at 4:02.
Okay. Well, thank you guys for your time tonight. I know some of you are new and haven't had the opportunity to hear a fiscal health report so far. And since you've been to WHAM and went to the newly elected boot camp, I'm sure you learned that it's our responsibility as finance people in our municipalities to keep you apprised on a quarterly basis of our current financial standings, and then also on an annual basis regarding our financial report from our auditors, which you received a couple of weeks ago. So what the report I'm giving you tonight is just our current fiscal year report based on our budgets, revenues, and expenditures from the start of our fiscal year, which begins July 1st of every year and runs through June 30th. So this report will just give you information from July 1st to December 31st. So, excuse me. Our budget was approved this year of a total of $36,991,000. We normally start our budget process in March, and it runs all the way through June as far as approval goes. We require several meetings, which you all will be receiving invitations to, and there's a lot of planning and prioritization that is involved in our budget planning process. So at the end of the year last year, or the beginning, I guess, June 30th, the City Council approved a $36 million budget. The city budget has 12 funds, the general fund, enterprise and proprietary funds, and fiduciary funds that we manage. And there's 31 divisions within the city government that we manage, and each of our divisions are assigned their own specific cost centers or their own specific budgets. Overall, our capital expenditures for this year was just slightly in excess of $18.7 million out of our $36 million, and approximately 64% of the entire capital budget is supported by grants, compared to 57% that we had last year in grant funding. So we're up a little bit in grant funding. And of the 25 total grants that the city budgeted in fiscal year 25, 13 of those are dedicated to capital improvement projects. So we work hard to get grant funding at the city. These 13 grants represent 97% of the total funds received from our 25 program grants. So quite a bit of money goes into our grant funding. The general fund, and you all have a copy of this in your packet. I know it's a little hard to read when it's up on the screen.
Ms. Harris, could you
Yes.
say that again about grant funding? I just want to emphasize it, I think, both for the council and for the public that are hearing.
So our overall capital was $18.7 million, and 64.6% of that is supported by grants. And of the 25 total grants, the city has budgeted 13 are dedicated to capital, and these 13 grants represent 97% of the total funds received from the 25 program grants. So, good statistics for us. So our general fund budget of the $36 million is $13.7, and the general fund makes up approximately 28% of the total budget. It's our primary operating fund, and it's used to account for revenues and expenditures for most of our tax-supported activities of the city. So when our citizens say, I pay my taxes, this is where their money is going, is into the general fund. These activities are categorized as public goods that benefit all citizens and cannot be sold in units. Departments within the general fund include the police department, streets and alleys, parks, municipal court, building maintenance, fleet, information technology, community development, just to name a few. There's more in that general fund as well. The largest source of revenue for the general fund is sales and use tax, mineral royalties, severance tax, and fuel tax. And then the city also receives direct distribution funding for over-the-cap mineral royalties that are allocated by a formula designated by the state legislature. These funds are primarily used for one-time expenses and to support capital projects. In recent years, we've also used our direct distribution funding to help offset some of our operational costs as well. So at the close of the second quarter, the general fund reflected a positive balance of $200,498 in revenues over expenditures. Sales and use tax project revenues were, right now, as of December 30th, were $103,000 over our projections. We really try to project conservatively on our revenues, just in case things happen with inflation, finances, as it goes. Notable revenues exceeding projections also include our property tax, so we're 14% over our budget at this point mid-year, which totals to $68,000 above what we projected. Rocky Mountain Power franchise fees were 11% over our projections, so we have $59,000 more than what we projected in revenues. Parimutuel commission, that was brought up during discussion tonight as far as the historical horse betting. Right now, we're at 205% of projections in budget in parimutuel commissions, which brought us at $31,649.67 in December. We also received another $48,000 today, so our current receipts are at $110,000 in historical horse racing. So that money does bring some good revenue to the general fund for the city of Riverton. And then also our interest on investments. I budget pretty conservatively on our interest on investments just based on market conditions, things that are happening in our markets, political changes. Right now, we have $68,755 in interest income that we did not budget for, so that's additional money that goes into our budget. On the expenditure side of the budget, most of our operating cost centers are at or below their budget limits for this period, and you can see that on the lower section of the pie charts up there with the administration of my cost center, administrative services, and then also community services. So the community services money is the contract for services funding that we give out to specific organizations in the community. We used to pay those out on a quarterly basis, and then over the course of the last couple years, especially for the ones that are smaller dollar amounts, we're allocating those out and giving them all of their funding at once. So that's showing that it's trending a little high right now, and that's because we're only 50% of the way through the fiscal year, and we've allocated most of that money out to those entities. And then the administrative services line item is up, and it's mainly due to costs associated with software, and then our insurance costs came in significantly higher than what we budgeted for this year. Unfortunately, when we are trying to budget, there are certain areas where the vendors that are receiving our money are not complete with all of their research and their budgeting yet. So all we can do is forecast and estimate based on historical projections what we think that our expenditure budgets are going to be. And we missed the line on that one this year. So we'll do better next year on that one. Another thing to consider is that we're still only 50% of the way through the budget. So as time progresses, that percentage is going to lower as well because we upfront those costs as well at the beginning of the fiscal year. Lastly, you'll notice the capital outlay budget is only at 17% of its projected $5.78 million budget. So we have not spent in capital what we projected to spend. One big project that we had was the City Park Improvement Project, and we had budgeted about $1.6 million for that project. Unfortunately, we did not receive the grant that we had applied for that project. We'll go back and try again. But we budgeted for it just in case it happened, then we would be prepared to have the money in the budget. So, as a reminder, the budget was approved to transfer $52,000 from cash for operations and then $121,000 carryover from the opioid settlement that the city is participating in, and then $1.4 million for capital, for total cash transfers this year of $1.6 million. Any questions regarding the general fund? Okay, I'm going to move on to the airport fund. The total budget for the airport fund is $3.78 million, and $3.02 million of that is scheduled for capital projects. So you can see our operating costs, we try to keep very low in our airport division. The airport fund closed the quarter with a balance of $140,990 in revenues over expenditures. Historically, we close our quarters in the airport fund with a deficit balance. At the close of fiscal year 24, the city had incurred costs related to some projects, and we had outstanding reimbursements for grants that crossed the year-end fiscal budget lines. So there were $715,000 in grant reimbursements outstanding from last year that we received this fiscal year. So that definitely helps improve the look of our airport fund budget at this point in time. The approved airport budget included a transfer of cash for $481,000 to support operations and $70,000 for capital. Okay, moving on to the water fund. So we talked a little about the general fund. We also have enterprise funds in our budgets. Enterprise funds are normally our water, sewer, and our sanitation budget. Our airport budget is kind of a quasi-enterprise fund. We keep and manage the money separately because it helps assist us in understanding the monies and the cash inflows and outflows for the airport fund. So while it's supported by the general fund, the airport fund does not make money. Supported by the general fund, we still keep track of its monies separately. Water, sewer, and sanitation resemble traditional business models because they utilize a fee for service rather than taxes. And fees are charged to the users to cover the delivery of services, support, infrastructure, and capital maintenance. The Governmental Accounting Standard Board requires the use of enterprise funds to account for services, and derive a portion of their income from user charges. And these funds are intended to be self-sufficient via the development of a rate structure. So that's why when we discuss rates in the spring, we talk about what our needs are, managing our debt service coverage, long-term capital plan, and just the long-term health and upkeep of the system. So the annual budget for the water fund is $4.99 million. There are $2.06 million in capital projects proposed for this fund this year. The fund closed the quarter with a positive balance of $76,107. Talk about tight budgeting. There were grant reimbursements of $214,000 outstanding in both the water and the sewer fund related to the water meter replacement project, and we did receive an ARPA grant for that this year. And the monies were received in January of this year, so that $214 we just received in January. The budget was approved with a transfer of cash of $346,327 to cover capital. And then, of course, major items scheduled for capital this year include the meter replacement project. That's our biggest project, and we'll be ever so glad when that's completed, but it'll do wonderful things for us. And that's split between the water and the sewer funds, so I'm going to repeat that in the next slide as well. The city was awarded $3.02 million in funding. Other projects, grant funded, the water tank rehabilitation project, which when you all made your tour of the water treatment facility last week, they talked about that. Hydrant and valve repairs, there's a mini vac and a valve exercising equipment that was purchased and split between the water and the sewer fund. And then there's a few additional other minor improvements and projects that are associated with the water fund capital this year. Moving on to the wastewater fund, the average budget for that fund is $6.74 million. This budget closed the quarter with a deficit balance of $266,783 in expenditures over revenues. Don't forget that we did receive that $214,000 in January, so that helps make it look a little better. But we have put a lot of money into the last couple years in upgrades to our aging wastewater treatment plant, and you have to have wastewater. You have to have a plant. So we budgeted for that. Like the water fund, of course, we got the $214,000 in. This budget was approved for a cash transfer of $550,000 to cover capital. So anything outside of the revenues that we projected we wouldn't bring in is the cash transfer that we've budgeted. So we're going to take $500,000 out of our cash to help cover our projects this year. And the fund will continue to see improvements, upgrades to the A&T lift station, that's a sewer lift station, and then shared costs on that mini vac and the valve exercises, in addition to other project improvements in the wastewater plant. Our sanitation fund has always been kind of our quiet fund. The annual budget for that fund is $2.79 million, and this fund closed the quarter with a positive balance of $236,581 in revenues over expenditures. We plan to purchase a sanitation truck out of this fund this year, and then we also purchased a recycle truck, and we've already received that. So that's the situation with the sanitation fund. And then the last fund that I have is the Air Service Fund, and we know that that's primarily funded by the 0.5% economic development tax. At the close of the quarter, the Air Service budget reflects a negative balance in expenditures over revenues by $22,490. This balance includes the portion of the economic development funding that through the December 2024, and that was as approved by council action on December 3rd. So at that time, the council said, we're going to take the city's 70% of the 0.5% through December 31st, and we're going to give that to Air Service. So that transfer has been made, and we still have a deficit balance of $22,480. We have not received our second quarter invoice from YDOT for Air Service. I did do a check on the books today, and our Q1 invoice was $440,000. So the council did approve a cash transfer from previous funding that we had received from Air Service of $800,000 to move into the Air Service Fund this year to help cover our expenses. And with that, I just wanted to thank the supervisors and the staff at the city. They really do work hard to maintain their budgets. We stay on it on the regular basis. We have constant conversations with our employees about staying within our budgets. And also wanted to thank the staff for approving the budget that you've approved and allowing us to fulfill the needs that we have for our community. And I'd stand for any questions.
Any questions for our Administrative Services Director?
Just thank you for everything you do.
Good job.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're amazing.
That deserves a round of applause.
Thanks. Thanks for staying. I'm used to speaking to an empty room. So it's nice people are here. Besides yourselves, of course.
Well done, thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Super impressive.
Okay. I don't see we need an executive session. I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Kyle is on it.
Motion by Councilman Larson, second by Councilman Carr. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Motion passes. Meeting of the City Council stands adjourned at 9:02 PM.